Cleopatra, the last queen of Egypt. Prologue, a dying kingdom. Alexandria burned beneath a merciless sunset, the crimson ashes of a collapsing world falling in silence. The marble colonnades, once gleaming like ivory, now cracked and blackened by smoke. Statues of the gods and pharaohs of Egypt, silent witnesses of centuries, looked on as the Roman standards advanced into the streets. Their scarlet banners whipping in the Mediterranean wind. The clash of Roman boots grew louder, their conquest drawing ever closer. Steel striking the stones of a city that once rivaled Rome itself. At the center of this fading empire stood Queen Cleopatra. She walked the echoing corridors of the palace, the hem of her silken robe brushing mosaics that told of the Ptolemaic dynasty's ancient triumphs. She was no longer the victorious queen who once held Caesar's hand on the Nile, nor the sovereign who sailed golden ships beside Antony. To the world now, she was only a woman standing at the edge of annihilation. Octavian, ruthless, calculating, unyielding, had tightened his grip. He had defeated Antony, shattered the Egyptian fleet, and encircled Alexandria. There was no escape, no allies left to call upon. For Cleopatra, queen of the Nile, living embodiment of Isis, daughter of the Ptolemies, the end had come. But how should a queen die? Visions of humiliation and torment flashed before her eyes. To be chained, dragged through the streets of Rome as a living trophy in Octavian's triumph? Or to choose her own death, to preserve her pride in dying, when she could no longer preserve it in life? Cleopatra already knew the answer, though her heart trembled before it. Recollection, dreams of gold and glory. The footsteps of Roman soldiers echoed nearer. She closed her eyes, and memories surged like the Nile in flood. She was 21 when she first stood before Julius Caesar in the Grand Hall of Alexandria. The city was rife with intrigue and danger. Her own brother plotted her death, but she had dared to smuggle herself into the palace hidden in a carpet. When it was unrolled before the Roman general, her eyes met Caesar's, and something greater than politics was born. He was much older, his face scarred by years of war, yet his presence filled every space like a burning sun. Cleopatra saw not only power in him, but destiny itself. Together they walked along the Nile, speaking of empires as though sharing lovers' secrets. He gave her protection, she gave him a vision of Egypt not as a vassal, but as Rome's equal partner. Their son, Caesarion, was the living proof of that union. For a fleeting moment, Cleopatra believed she could weave Rome and Egypt into something immortal. But Caesar fell beneath the daggers of the Senate. Blood staining the marble steps of Rome ended her first great dream. Then came Antony, where Caesar had been stone. Antony was fire, a man of laughter, wine, and reckless courage. With him, Cleopatra sailed golden ships with perfumed sails billowing in the wind, music drifting across the Nile. In his arms she felt young again, alive in a masquerade of splendor and passion. Antony, warrior and hero, fought for her, lived for her, and at the end, bled for her. But passion was also his ruin. Against Octavian, Antony chose pride over prudence. At Actium, the fleet was lost. Believing Cleopatra dead, Antony thrust his sword into himself. She held him in her arms, hearing his last breath whisper her name. Now she stood alone, the fading light of a dynasty 3 centuries old. Inner conflict, the queen and the woman. The palace walls closed in as Cleopatra paced through the shadows. Outside, the voices of her people had fallen silent. The city had turned its face from her, awaiting Rome's judgment. Inside her heart, a storm raged. She was a queen, and queens must not fear. Yet fear clung to her like a shadow, fear for her children. Fear of humiliation, fear that her name would not be remembered as a goddess, but as a captive dragged in chains behind Octavian's chariot. Was she not the living Isis? Not the divine queen of Egypt, descendant of the Ptolemies who built wonders of the world? And yet she felt only the frail body of a woman, trembling before the iron shackles of Rome. Her thoughts turned to her children, Caesarion, Caesar's son, whom she had secretly sent away, the twins she bore to Antony. Their innocent eyes unknowing of empire's cruelty. Would Octavian spare them, or spill their blood, erasing all rivals to Rome? Within her, the mother and the queen clashed fiercely. As a mother, she would crawl before Octavian, beg, endure prison, if only her children might live. As a queen, she longed to spit in his face, denying him the pleasure of breaking her spirit. And as a woman, she yearned only for Antony's embrace, to forget crowns and wars. To be held by the man who swore to conquer the world for her. But Antony was gone, he had died believing her already lost. Now, the choice was hers alone. 31 BC, the Battle of Actium. Off the coast of Greece, the fate of two empires collided. Octavian's fleet, commanded by Agrippa, faced Antony and Cleopatra's ships. The sea roared with fire and bronze, oars clashing, arrows raining. In the height of battle, Cleopatra's flagship suddenly withdrew into open waters. Whether from fear, strategy, or despair, her retreat shattered Antony's resolve. He abandoned his men to follow her, leaving chaos in his wake. The war was lost, the lovers fled to Alexandria, their realm shrinking as Octavian's army pressed forward. Within the palace once filled with revelry and triumph, Cleopatra and Antony now confronted destruction. Octavian swore to annihilate them, to erase their names. Antony, broken, fell upon his sword and died in Cleopatra's arms. As the Roman eagle circled above her kingdom, Octavian demanded her surrender. He planned to parade her through Rome, a caged queen, chained and mocked. Cleopatra, daughter of the Nile, would never allow it. Clad in her royal robes, she visited the tomb she had built for herself, its chambers filled with treasure, as though preparing for the afterlife. With her handmaids, she walked her final path. Legend says a basket of figs was brought to her, within it, a hidden cobra, pressing the serpent to her arm. Its venom burned through her veins. Others claim she drank a poison brewed by her scholars. However it came, Cleopatra chose her death as she had lived, claiming her fate in defiance of Rome. When Octavian entered her chamber, he found her already dead, crowned in death, her handmaids beside her. The last queen of Egypt had become immortal. The immortal queen. Cleopatra's eldest son, Caesarion, though sent away in secret, was murdered by Octavian's order. Her other children were dragged to Rome, bound and humiliated. Egypt fell, its independence was lost, its Nile kingdom reduced to a Roman province. Yet Cleopatra lived on, in memory, in legend. To her enemies, she was a goddess of beauty, an enchantress who ensnared the greatest men of Rome. To her people, she was Isis incarnate, the last pharaoh who stood against empire. To history, she remains immortal, a queen of brilliance and passion who altered the course of the ancient world. The Nile still flows, whispering her name. Cleopatra, Queen Eternal.